The first thing you notice upon entry into the courthouse is the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, loaded kind, as if the air itself knows something is about to break. Sunlight filters through the tall windows, reaching across the floor like sharp edges of glass. Every step echoes, every whisper carries, and every breath is too loud. This isn't just any case. This is the Brown family, the sister wives, dragged out from behind cameras and living rooms. Dragged into a courtroom where no editing, no producers, no family meetings can protect them. Here, truth has nowhere to hide. People are crowded into the hall outside the courtroom doors. Journalists with notepads pressed to their chests, YouTubers whispering theories into phones, fans clutching posters from old seasons. Some came hoping for drama. Some came looking for answers. But all of them came for one reason. Today is the day everything changes. Inside, the courtroom is cold. More cold than it needs to be. Maybe that's just the air conditioning. Maybe that's just the mood. The benches fill up fast. Cameras are banned, but that does not stop anyone from recording every detail into their minds. Then the doors open. Kody Brown comes in first. His hair, once full of confidence and swagger, now a little unkempt, as if he had run his hands through it too many times. His glance runs from seat to seat, seeking out somebody, perhaps support, perhaps forgiveness, but he finds neither. He walks to his table with a stiffness that belies his nerves. Behind him, Robyn enters slowly, her face pulled into a polite expression, but her eyes are full of fear. She stays close to Kody, her hand hovering near his back, as if she wants to touch him, but is scared of how the world will interpret it. She looks around the room with careful precision, reading every face, every possible threat. Then comes Christine. The energy shifts in an instant. She walks in with an easy groundedness, like a woman who has finally made peace with her truth. She isn't nervous. She isn't angry. She is ready. Her chin is raised, her shoulders relaxed, but her eyes, those eyes, are a quiet fire, a fire that speaks volumes. Never again will I be silenced. Next is Janelle, striding purposefully, yet wearing an expression of exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but emotional. Years of holding things together. Years of being the reasonable one. Years of swallowing her hurt for the sake of the family. Today, that composure is cracking, just slightly. And finally, Meri. She steps in, slowly and carefully. She does not look at anyone as she finally comes inside. She keeps her eyes on the floor, on the patterns in the wood, on the spaces between her steps. When she finally looks up, her expression is heavy, heavy with betrayal, heavy with history, heavy with words she never got to say. When the judge enters, everybody stands up. When the judge sits, the real story begins. The voice of the clerk resonates. Case 47B, Brown versus Brown. It's a tragedy even just by the title. The first 30 minutes are dry procedural introductions. The judge explaining expectations. The attorneys formalizing their positions. But beneath every word, the emotional undercurrent grows stronger. Kody keeps shifting in his seat. Robyn clutches her pen like it's a lifeline. Christine sits calmly, hands folded. Janelle clenches and unclenches her jaw. Meri stares at the table as if it holds every regret she's ever lived. Then Christine is called to the stand. The whole room gasps in unison. She walks forward calmly, brushing her fingers along the wood rail as she sits. She adjusts the microphone with gentle precision, takes a breath, and looks up. Her expression is unreadable, a mixture of pain and resolve and of something dangerously close to relief. "Mrs. Brown," the attorney begins. When did you first notice the financial discrepancies within the family accounts? Christine exhales slowly, as if releasing the weight she had carried for years. It began around 2 years before I left, she said. I noticed money was missing. Bills weren't paid. Money earmarked for the kids was being diverted somewhere else. But when I asked about it, I was told not to worry, that everything was being taken care of. She doesn't look at Kody. Not yet. Handled by whom? Asked the attorney. Christine finally turns her head. It lands on Kody like a silent accusation. I was told it was all under Kody's control, she says. And that I didn't understand the bigger picture. Kody shifts, clearing his throat. Christine continues with a steady, heavy voice. But the bigger picture was a lie. A sharp murmur spreads through the courtroom. Christine continues, leaning into him. I played by the rules. I trusted in our system, John, our marriage, our values. And then what I didn't know was that an account had been opened using my name, without my consent. Robyn gasps softly. Kody's eyes widen. The judge raises his head. A bank account? Clarifies the attorney. Yes, Christine says. One that was moving large sums of money. Money meant for my kids. A slight tremble in her voice gives away how much pain lies beneath that calm. I'm not here to hurt anyone, she continues. I'm here because the truth shouldn't be hidden anymore. The attorney turns to Kody. Mr. Brown, do you wish to respond? Kody rises suddenly, scraping his chair across the floor, his face strained, his breathing sharp. I would never create an account without permission, he says loudly, but there is a slight break in his voice. Christine watches him with an unreadable expression. The attorney raises a document. This account contains your signature, and the transfers lead to a secondary account in the name of Miss Robyn Brown. Robyn's eyes widen as she whispers, What, Kody? Kody raises a hand. There's an explanation. The courtroom awaits. Kody's jaw tightens. I wasn't the only one involved. Silence floods the room. The kind of silence that feels dangerous. Are you saying, the attorney says slowly, that someone else in this room helped move the money? Kody nods once, his eyes flickering with fear. Yes. He turns, not towards Christine, not on Robyn, not to Janelle. He turns towards Meri. A collective gasp rises like a wave. Meri's face crumples immediately. She shakes her head, the tears beginning to well under her lashes. Kody, no. You know that isn't true. Kody doesn't answer. The judge bangs the gavel for order, but it has already shattered. Meri rises slowly, her voice barely more than a whisper. After everything you put me through, after all the years of loneliness you forced me into, this is what you do. You throw me under the bus just to save yourself? It's the hurt in her voice that holds the entire room by its throat. Christine looks devastated. Janelle looks furious. Robyn looks confused. Kody looks cornered. This isn't about money anymore. This is about power. This is about scapegoats. This is about secrets finally rising to the surface. And the surface is cracking. The judge finally restores order, but the damage is done. The room feels different now, more electric, more volatile, more dangerous. The first truth bomb has been dropped, and that is just the beginning. The second Christine sat down, the courtroom seemed to shift. Not loudly, not visibly, just a thin, sharp change in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. People leaned forward in their chairs, Pens hovered above notepads. Even the camera crew adjusted their lenses, sensing that whatever came next would matter. Maybe more than anything that had been said so far. Judge Harrison peered over the rim of her glasses into the room. Her voice was steady but stern. "Mr. Brown, you may answer." Kody Brown straightened, attempting to regain the confidence Christine's testimony had stripped away. But everybody could see what was happening. The mask was cracking. His jaw kept tightening. His foot tapped under the table. He wasn't the calm, composed family leader he always claimed to be. Not today. He slowly stood, putting both hands on the table, as if for support. "Your Honor," he began, "I need to make one thing very clear. Everything I did, every decision I made, was for my family, not for myself." The words were strong, rehearsed, almost theatrical. But the courtroom did not respond with admiration. No nods, no agreement. Instead, there was silence, heavy, expectant, skeptical. Christine's attorney, a placidly serene, but sharp as nails woman named Ms. Torrance, leaned back in her chair, watching Kody like a hunter waits for an animal to walk into a trap. Kody continued, "For years, I have carried the responsibility of keeping a plural family together. People don't understand how hard that is. They don't see the sacrifices I made, financial sacrifices, emotional sacrifices, personal sacrifices." He pressed his hand to his chest. "I gave everything." Christine didn't flinch. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't interrupt. She just watched him, her face unreadable, almost peaceful. And that, more than anything, rattled Kody. He had expected her to react. He had expected her to fight. He expected the old Christine, the one who cried softly, the one who said sorry for things she didn't do, the one who carried burdens that weren't hers. But that woman was gone. And this courtroom could feel it. Kody swallowed, his voice tightening. "When she says I hid finances, that is not true. I managed the family funds because someone had to. I made decisions because someone had to. And I did everything with good intentions. Always." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Not loud, just enough to reveal a shift. People were starting to question, starting to doubt, starting to see the version of Kody he had never wanted anyone to see. Ms. Torrance rose. "With respect, Your Honor, we will address each of those claims. But before we proceed, may I remind the court that Mr. Brown is not answering the question. He is giving a speech." The judge nodded slowly. "Mr. Brown, would you please address your response to the charges? Undisclosed accounts, unreported income, and financial decisions made without the plaintiff knowing." Kody's face hardened. "I was protecting my family," he insisted. "That's what a husband does." Christine breathed steadily. Everything in her body language screamed in silence. "This is not the truth, and I'm no longer afraid to correct it." Miss Torrance strode up to the bench. "Your Honor, at this time the plaintiff would like to introduce as Exhibit C, financial records from 2017 to 2023. The courtroom erupted into a series of whispers. Exhibit C had been mentioned in earlier hearings, but never shown. Everyone knew it was a bomb waiting to go off. The judge nodded. "Proceed." Stacks of papers were set before the judge and spread out between both legal tables. You could feel the tension all the way up in the gallery. It was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The moment truth would stop hiding behind words. Kody's face went white as he recognized the documents. This isn't what it looks like," he said quickly, voice rising. Miss Torrance didn't hesitate. "Isn't it, Mr. Brown?" She pointed to one page. This account. Why was Christine's name removed? She flipped to the next page. This income. Reported nowhere in the family budget. Why? Another page. These expenses. Vehicle, travel, property consultations. None of which were shared with the plaintiff. Why? Kody's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted to his attorney for guidance. But even his attorney looked perplexed. Christine looked down momentarily, then up again. Her tone was soft but firm. Because he never intended for any of us to know. Kody snapped. That is not true. You don't understand how complicated everything was. You didn't want to understand. Christine didn't raise her voice. I asked, repeatedly. You told me it wasn't my place. You told me it was man's responsibility. You told me I didn't need to worry about it because you were handling everything. She leaned forward slightly. But the truth is, you weren't handling everything. You were fighting things. The judge raised her hand. Mr. Brown, remain calm. This is a court of law. Kody was breathing heavily, his veneer slipping. Then, unexpectedly, Meri shifted in her seat. She wasn't scheduled to speak yet. She wasn't expected to say anything today. But something inside her had shifted as she watched Kody unravel under the pressure of facts he couldn't twist. She raised her hand slightly. Your Honor, may I add something? The entire room froze. The judge considered for a moment and nodded. You may. Meri rose, her voice shaking, yet determined. I stayed quiet for years. I stayed loyal when it hurt. I defended him when I shouldn't have. But what Christine is saying, it's not a lie. It happened. I saw it happen. I lived it. Kody turned to her, shock and betrayal written all over his face. Meri, what are you doing? She shook her head. Telling the truth, finally. Her voice cracked, but she didn't sit down. She didn't back down. For years, he kept the finances locked away. I wasn't allowed to see certain accounts either. I wasn't allowed to ask questions. If I did, he'd say I was causing drama or being ungrateful. She swallowed. Christine isn't exaggerating. She's not making anything up. She's being braver than I ever was. A gasp moved through the gallery like a wave. Kody looked back and forth between Christine and Meri, his face contorted in anger and incredulity. You both are distorting the facts. You are rewriting history just to make me look bad. You know I did everything for all of you. But the room no longer believed him. Because they had just heard something they never thought they would hear against Kody. In court, under oath. As the noise swelled, Judge Harrison called for order. When the room finally settled, the judge leaned forward. Mr. Brown, the testimony and records presented today raise some grave concerns. We will continue reviewing evidence, but let me remind you that emotional justification does not take the place of transparency, especially when it comes to finances. Kody slumped in his chair, drained, exposed, and infuriated. Christine finally exhaled. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a turning point. That moment when truth finally stepped into the light after years of living in the shadows. And the courtroom knew it. Everyone knew it. A balance had shifted. The story was no longer about just broken relationships. It was now about accountability. And for the first time, Kody Brown realized the truth was no longer something within his control. The courtroom had barely come out of the shock caused by the sudden testimony of Meri when silence fell once more. Thick, heavy, almost suffocating. It was not ordinary silence. It carried weight. It carried years. It carried secrets. Everyone in that courtroom, the spectators, the reporters, the lawyers, knew they had just witnessed something historic. For decades, Meri had stood by Kody's side, even when it cost her everything. She defended him when she shouldn't have, apologized for things that weren't her fault, swallowed her pain because it's what loyalty required. But today, something inside her had finally cracked open, and the courtroom was about to witness it. Meri didn't sit down, though her hands had a slight quiver. She grasped the edge of the witness stand, as if she were preparing to brace herself against a storm she was finally ready to enter. Kody stared at her in shock. "Meri, stop this," he said in a low, strained voice. But she didn't stop. In fact, she straightened. "Your Honor," she said softly, "I know I wasn't scheduled to speak today. I know this isn't procedure. But after hearing Christine, after hearing him—" She gestured toward Kody without looking at him. "I can't stay silent anymore." Judge Harrison regarded her with steady eyes. "You may continue, Miss Brown." Meri closed her eyes for a second, collecting herself. When she opened them again, they were wet, but sharp, focused. "I stayed with him because I believed in the family. I believed love could be fixed if I worked hard enough. But the truth is, I was holding something together that he was already letting fall apart." Kody's fists clenched. "That's not true." "Please do not interrupt the witness," the judge interrupted. The gallery was abuzz with electric energy. Cameras zoomed in. There were a few quiet gasps. No one wanted to miss a word. Meri continued. "When we first built this plural family, we agreed everything would be equal, that the marriages would be balanced, that decisions would be shared." Her voice shook. "But that's not what happened. Over time, over many years, he became distant, secretive. He stopped including us. He stopped listening. He stopped caring." Kody shifted uncomfortably. His attorney leaned over to whisper something in his ear, but Kody didn't say anything. His eyes stayed on Meri, hurt and panic twisting his features. Slowly, Meri inhaled. "There were nights I sat alone, wondering what I had done wrong. Why wasn't I enough? Why did the rules seem to change every time I tried to follow them? And every time I spoke up, he said I was being dramatic." A tear slid down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. "I wasn't dramatic. I was drowning." Christine lowered her eyes, deeply moved. She had lived that pain. She knew the weight of it. Meri swallowed. "And the finances. He made it sound like he was protecting us. But really, he was boxing us out. I remember asking him once why I couldn't see an account that had both our names on it originally. She laughed sadly. He told me, 'It's complicated, Meri. You wouldn't understand.' Just like that. No explanation, no discussion, just dismissal." She looked directly at Kody now. "That was the moment I realized my voice didn't matter to you anymore." Her words hit him like a blow. He shook his head in disbelief. "Meri, that's not how it happened," he insisted. Desperation creeping in. "You're twisting things because you're emotional." She smiled sorrowfully. "That's what you always said. Whenever I cried, whenever I spoke up, whenever I had needs, you blamed my emotions. But maybe the problem wasn't my emotions. Maybe the problem was that you forgot I was a person, not a burden." A collective breath swept across the room. Meri went on, her voice getting firmer. "I kept pretending everything was fine because I didn't want to be the one that broke the family. But the truth is, it was already breaking. You were breaking it with secrecy, favoritism, manipulation." Kody's face reddened. "That's enough," he snapped. "You're making me look like a man who didn't treat his wives fairly." Meri gently interrupted. "If that's how you look, maybe that's because it's true." Judge Harrison raised a hand. "Mr. Brown, if you interrupt again, I will remove you from the stand." Kody sat back, Seething in silence, Meri finally wiped her tears away. But she wasn't finished. "There was a time," she said quietly, "when I believed our bond was strong, when I believed you loved me the way you said you did. But over the years, the gap between us grew wider. And every time I tried to cross it, you stepped back." Her voice cracked. "You left me long before I ever left you." The room felt silent, emotional, and thick with truth. Meri placed both hands on the stand, breathing deeply. "And I want this court to understand something important. Christine wasn't the first to feel invisible. She wasn't the first to feel unheard. She wasn't the first to be kept out of decisions. She was just the first to be brave enough to walk away." Tears welled up in Christine's eyes. She mouthed, "Thank you." Meri nodded back. But she wasn't done yet. "I came today because I realized something. If I continued protecting him with my silence, I'd become part of the problem. I won't do that anymore. Not for him, not for the show, not for anyone." She turned to the judge. "I support Christine's claims. I support her fight for fairness. I support her right to know the truth about the family finances. And I want the court to know that she's not exaggerating anything. If anything, she's being kinder than the truth deserves." A ripple ran through the gallery. Someone whispered, "Wow." Another whispered, "This changes everything." And it did. Kody looked visibly shaken. His voice cracked in irritation and disbelief. "You're all acting like I'm some villain. I took care of this family. I worked my whole life to provide." Ms. Torrance stood up serenely. "And yet, Mr. Brown, your wives are telling a very different story, a consistent story." The judge nodded. "Indeed." Kody looked from Christine to Meri and back again, his eyes desperately seeking the loyalty he used to take for granted. It wasn't there, not anymore. Meri spoke one final time. "I'm not here to destroy him. I'm here to finally stop destroying myself." And with this, she sat down. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't theatrical. It wasn't even loud. But it was the most powerful moment of the entire hearing, because for the first time, Meri Brown, quiet, loyal, long-enduring Meri, had finally spoken her truth. And it wasn't just testimony. It was liberation. The courtroom felt it. Christine felt it. And Kody, he felt it most of all. The judge scribbled down some notes. Her expression shifted slightly. It wasn't judgment. It wasn't sympathy. It was recognition. The recognition that the case had finally shifted direction because the truth was becoming impossible to deny. And as the court recessed for a brief break, one thing became undeniably clear. The silence had ended with a low murmur rolling across the courtroom. You felt it shift as much as you heard it, the air thickening with something dangerous, something alive, something waiting. As the judge came back and the gavel lightly hit against the block, the noise dissolved instantly. "Court's back in session," Judge Harrison announced, adjusting her glasses as she surveyed the room. "Miss Torrance, you mentioned requesting another witness. Please proceed." Christine's attorney rose with a calm but sharpened edge. "Yes, Your Honor. The next testimony is important in terms of financial inconsistencies. We would like to call Miss Robyn Brown to the stand." A ripple of energy shot through the crowd. Robyn. For the first time that day, Kody's confidence faltered completely. His jaw clenched, and his eyes snapped to her instantly, panic flickering behind them. He whispered urgently, "You don't have to say anything you're uncomfortable with." Robyn touched his arm lightly. "I'm not lying for you, Kody," she said with a voice so soft it nearly didn't reach him. But it did. It hit him like a punch. As she stood, the courtroom watched with a mix of anticipation and disbelief. "Robyn," the one wife who had always publicly defended him, always soothed him, always backed his decisions, was walking toward the stand with the weight of a woman who had been holding far too much for far too long. She sat. She adjusted her skirt. She entwined her fingers tightly. But when she lifted her eyes, they carried a haunting mix of fear, guilt, and exhaustion. The oath was given. She nodded. Then silence. Dead silence. "Miss Brown," Miss Torrance began gently. "You have been Mr. Brown's legal wife for several years. You are also the primary individual with access to certain accounts that were previously shared among the spouses. Is that correct?" Robyn hesitated. Kody watched her as though he could will her into silence. Her lips trembled. "Yes," she whispered. A flurry of camera clicks echoed. "And during those years," the lawyer said again, "did Mr. Brown ask you to move money from joint accounts into accounts solely under your name?" Kody jerked forward. "Robyn." "Mr. Brown," the judge warned. "Let the witness speak." Robyn swallowed, eyes wet. "Yes," she said again, louder this time. "He did, many times." Gasps spread like wildfire around the room. Kody's face flushed red. "That's not how it happened. She's misunderstanding." She turned sharply to him, her voice cracking. "No, Kody, I'm not misunderstanding anything. You told me to do it. You came into my room at night, stressing about the bills and the legal issues, and said it was safer this way. You said the other wives were too emotional, that they couldn't be trusted with financial decisions." Christine exhaled, her hands shaking. Janelle lowered her head, her lips pressed tight. He continued, the lawyer pacing slowly. "And were you aware, by putting the money in your name, the other wives, in effect, had no access to the funds they each put in?" Robyn nodded, her expression dripping with guilt. "I didn't want to do it, but he kept saying it was temporary, that he'd fix it later, that it was for the family. I believed him. I wanted peace. I wanted to help, but I knew it wasn't right." Her voice cracked again. "I knew they would be hurt." Kody stared at her, anger and heartbreak together twisting into betrayal. "You're turning on me now, after everything we went through, after everything I trusted you with?" Robyn looked down, shaking. "I'm not turning on you, Kody. I loved you, and I still care about you. But I won't lie anymore. I won't hide things anymore. You made me part of something that damaged them, and it damaged me too. That confession hit harder than evidence ever would." Robyn went on, her voice soft and trembling. "You made me carry the blame for things I never wanted. You let the world think that I was in control of every single thing. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared to lose you. Scared to upset you. Scared to be the next wife you're pulling away from." Christine looked at her, genuinely moved. For the first time in years, the tension between them cracked, just a little. Miss Torrance stepped closer. "Did you ever witness Mr. Brown withholding financial information from the other wives?" The answer from Robyn came straight away. "Yes," the judge scribbled notes. The audience leaned forward. "Can you explain?" Slowly, Robyn nodded, her eyes growing distant, as if reliving every painful moment. There were meetings the other wives weren't invited to. There were conversations regarding property. There were discussions about the show's money. He said they wouldn't understand, or they'd overreact. Sometimes he sat with papers in front of him, shaking his head, saying, if they knew this, it would be chaos. She looked up, the tears spilling freely. I should have said something. I should have pushed him to be honest. But he always told me not to involve myself. He said it wasn't my place. But then, he'd turn around and make me responsible anyway. Her voice lowered to a heartbreaking whisper. He put me in the center of a storm I didn't create, Christine shut her eyes, soaking in every word. This was the first time Robyn had acknowledged the wedge Kody had placed between them. Kody leaned forward aggressively. "You're forgetting everything. You're forgetting how hard I worked. You're forgetting how complicated this was." "I was trying to protect everyone," Robyn snapped back, voice rising unexpectedly. "By isolating them, by hiding things, by making decisions behind closed doors?" The courtroom froze. Robyn's eyes were fierce now. Not angry, not cruel, just tired. So tired to the bone. There was such a heavy silence. It seemed as though the entire room held its breath. She spoke again, this time in a soft voice. "Kody, I covered for you for years. I took blame for things that weren't mine. I tried to keep this family together while you were tearing it apart. But I won't lie anymore. Not to them, not to the court, not to myself." Ms. Torrance stepped back, letting the weight of her words settle. She didn't push. She didn't prod. She didn't have to. Robyn's testimony had changed everything. Judge Harrison wiggled her glasses, apparently taking notice of it. "Thank you, Ms. Brown," she said softly. "You may step down." Robyn stood up slowly, trembling. As she passed Christine, the unexpected happened. Christine reached out and touched her hand. Just for a moment. Robyn froze. Then she nodded, small, fragile, but meaningful. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Kody, however, could hardly breathe. His strongest ally, his most ardent supporter, the wife he once believed would never leave him, had just shattered his defense with a single truth. She wasn't protecting him anymore. She was protecting herself. The judge motioned to wrap up the next steps. Before the session could be adjourned, Christine's lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, based on the testimonies today, we will be filing a formal request for a forensic audit of all shared family accounts." Kody's head snapped up. A forensic audit. The one thing he never wanted. "No, no, absolutely not," he blurted. "This is ridiculous. This is—" "Mr. Brown," the judge said firmly, "I suggest you remain silent. This court will review the request." The gavel struck again. The room erupted into quiet chaos, because everyone knew what came next might expose everything Kody fought so hard to hide. Everything. And as Christine gathered her things, she glanced back at him one more time. Not with anger, not with triumph, but with the calm certainty of a woman who finally understood the truth. He wasn't untouchable. Not anymore. And the investigation had only just begun. The courtroom felt different after lunch. Quieter. Heavier. As if the tension was absorbed by the very walls. People whispered in small clumps, their voices low but urgent. The testimonies that had come out in the morning had been shocking enough, but what was coming now, it felt bigger, darker, like something long buried was clawing its way to the surface. Christine sat at her table, hands knotted firmly in her lap. She wasn't nervous anymore. She was resolute, because today wasn't just about her. It was about every moment she had swallowed her truth for the sake of keeping the peace. Every time she had put the family before herself. Every time she'd been told to be quiet. Now the truth spoke for her. Judge Harrison took the bench. "Court is back in session. Ms. Torrance, you may call your next witness." Christine's lawyer rose slowly, as if knowing the next move would change everything. "Your Honor, we call Ms. Janelle Brown to the stand." A shockwave ran through the courtroom. Janelle. Calm, rational, steady Janelle. The wife who never dramatized anything. The wife who kept the books, the schedules, the details. The wife who always gave Kody the benefit of the doubt. If she were here to speak, Kody was in real trouble. She walked with quiet strength, her face composed, but her eyes carrying years of exhaustion no one had ever fully seen. She sat down, adjusted the microphone, and took a steadying breath as she was sworn in. Miss Torrance stepped closer. "Ms. Brown, thank you for being here. We understand this is difficult." Janelle nodded once. "Yes, but necessary." Her voice was soft, steady, controlled. But deeper down, something quivered. Something hurt. "Ms. Brown," said the attorney, "let's start with your responsibilities regarding the family finances. How would you describe your role in those years that you and Mr. Brown were together?" The lawyer continued, "To all family accounts?" A small, humorless smile appeared on Janelle's lips. "No, I had access to some. And for a long time, I thought that was normal. There were accounts I was told weren't relevant to me. Accounts I was told were temporary. Accounts that didn't matter. But as the years went on, those accounts grew, and my access shrank." Kody raised his hand slightly, as if he wanted to interrupt, but he hesitated, perhaps remembering the warning by the judge. Janelle exhaled slowly. "For a long time, I believed what he told me. I thought the money was where it needed to be. I thought it was all managed." That word managed carried weight. Sarcasm, sadness. "But," Miss Torrance pressed gently, "something changed?" Janelle nodded. "Yes, around the time Christine was preparing to leave." Christine looked up, surprised. Janelle gave her a small, sad look. "I noticed bills weren't being paid on time," Janelle continues. "I noticed large withdrawals happening without explanation. When I asked about them, Kody got defensive. He accused me of overstepping. He told me not to worry. But I am a logical person. I know numbers." "And the numbers didn't make sense." "And what did you do when you realized that?" the lawyer asked. "I started printing statements." The courtroom leaned in. Kody's head snapped up. "You what?" Janelle ignored him. "I printed anything I could access. And when I couldn't access something, I wrote down the missing pieces. I made charts. I made timelines. I tried to understand. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation." "You fue?" asked the lawyer. Janelle's eyes fell. "No." Silence. A long, painful silence. Janelle continued softly. "I realized money had been moved. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. And not for bills. Not for emergencies. For personal decisions. Personal expenses. Personal investments." She hesitated. "And most of those investments were tied to properties Robyn and Kody controlled exclusively." The gallery gasped. Kody slammed his hands onto the table. "Are you kidding me? Janelle, you knew why I did that. You knew what I was dealing with." She turned to him then, finally. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't water. She was heartbreakingly steady. "Kody, I knew you were stressed. I knew you were overwhelmed. But I didn't know you were moving money without telling us. I didn't know you were consolidating assets in ways that left the rest of us vulnerable." Kody's voice cracked with frustration. "I was trying to protect the family." Janelle's face hardened. "No, you were protecting your family, the one you chose, the one you made with Robyn. The rest of us were bailing water from a sinking ship while you were patching holes in one room." A murmur rolled across the room. Finally, Janelle's composure cracked a little. "I kept on hoping you would talk to me, that you'd explain. But then you stopped looking at me the way you used to. You stopped trusting me. You stopped respecting me." Her jaw tightened. "And then you blamed me. You blamed me for bills that didn't get paid because you'd moved money. You blamed me for stress you created. You blamed me for a family breaking apart when you were the one holding the hammer. Christine's breath hitched. Even Meri wiped her eyes. Janelle continued. There is something else, she said quietly. Something I haven't shared before. Not with Christine. Not with Meri. And definitely not with him. The whole room fell silent. Kody's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Janelle shut her eyes, gathering her courage. A year before Christine left, I found out about a property. One Kody bought without telling anyone. Kody froze. It wasn't in the family name. It wasn't in a trust. It wasn't even in Robyn's name. She looked straight at him. It was in yours. Only yours. Gasps exploded through the courtroom. Kody stuttered. That was... Janelle, that wasn't a secret. It was, she said, firmly. Because I didn't find out from you. I found out from a tax document. A reporter in the backstage whispered loudly. This is unbelievable. Janelle's hands shook slightly. And that was the moment I realized something. You weren't overwhelmed. You weren't confused. You weren't protecting us. You were reorganizing the family without the family. Kody turned pale, his face a mix of anger and fear. You're making this sound sinister, he snapped. It wasn't like that. Then why, Janelle whispered, did you hide it? Another silence, thick and suffocating, spread. Judge Harrison finally spoke. Ms. Brown, do you have any documentation to support your claims? Janelle reached into her folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Yes, she said simply. I kept everything. The judge nodded. These will be entered into evidence. Kody looked like the ground was splitting beneath him. A forensic audit was one thing, but proof documented, hidden assets, unexplained transfers, this was no longer a family dispute. It was a legal disaster. Christine watched silently, breathing unsteadily. She hadn't anticipated this. She knew things were bad. She knew Kody was secretive. But this level, this depth, it changed everything, and Janelle wasn't finished. Kody, she said quietly, her eyes right on his. I loved you. I supported you. I believed in the vision you sold us, but I didn't sign up to be the invisible foundation holding up a house you were building for someone else. Her voice broke. You didn't lose this family because we turned on you. You lost this family because you stopped showing up for it. Even the judge paused at the weight of those words. Janelle looked at Christine, then Meri, then Robyn. For the first time in years, the four women shared a single expression: truth, pain, and finally, unity. Christine whispered, "Thank you." Janelle nodded. "I should have told him sooner." The judge motioned that she step down. But before she exited the stand, Janelle gave a final glance at Kody, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with the quiet disappointment of one who waited too long for a man who never intended to return. And Kody saw it. He felt it. He knew it. The woman who was once his strongest ally was no longer on his side. And now the truth was officially on record. As Janelle took her seat, Christine let out a shaky breath. For after this testimony, everyone in that courtroom knew. It wasn't just a financial case anymore. It was a reckoning. And the man sitting at the defense table was running out of places to hide.